The first gunshot shattered the quiet of the military hospital just before sunrise. For a brief moment, no one moved. The long sterile hallway, filled with the faint smell of antiseptic and the distant beeping of heart monitors, froze in disbelief. Marines who had survived firefights overseas suddenly found themselves staring toward the hospital entrance in confusion. Hospitals were supposed to be safe. They were supposed to be the one place where war stopped at the door. But war had just walked in. The heavy front doors burst open with violent force, and armed men in dark clothing stormed inside, their rifles raised and their footsteps echoing through the polished corridors. Nurses screamed. A wheelchair tipped over. A wounded Marine pulled his foreline free in panic as chaos spread like wildfire through the building. And standing quietly near the end of the hallway was a young rookie nurse that no one had paid much attention to before. Her name was Emily Carter. Before we continue this story, take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the hidden strength inside ordinary people. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Emily had arrived at the hospital only 2 weeks earlier. Most of the staff barely knew her. She was quiet, polite, and always volunteered for the toughest shifts without complaint. Her uniform was crisp, her hair tied back neatly, and she carried herself with calm professionalism. To the Marines recovering in the ward, she looked like exactly what she was supposed to be, a young nurse still learning the ropes. Some of the older Marines had even joked about her on her first day. They assumed she was fresh out of training, maybe nervous around battle-hardened soldiers. A few teased her gently, calling her rookie. Emily never argued. She simply smiled and kept doing her job. She checked bandages, monitored vitals, and stayed long after her shift ended to sit beside patients who couldn't sleep. One Marine who had lost part of his leg remembered how she stayed beside him through the night when the pain medication wore off. Another recalled how she calmly handled a panic attack from a soldier suffering severe PTSD. No one noticed that she moved through the hospital with the awareness of someone trained to observe every exit, every blind corner, every potential threat. No one noticed the faint scars on her hands. And no one noticed that she never seemed surprised by sudden noises. Until the morning the armed men came. The first intruders moved fast, sweeping through the lobby and pushing terrified staff toward the floor. Their leader shouted orders in a harsh voice while 2 others began moving deeper into the hospital corridors. The Marines inside the recovery wing were injured, medicated, and unarmed. Many of them tried to get out of their beds, but their bodies betrayed them. Bandaged arms, broken ribs, and healing wounds made them helpless. Fear spread quickly. Then someone noticed something strange. Emily wasn't panicking. While other nurses rushed to hide or protect patients, she stood still for a moment, listening carefully to the sounds echoing through the hall. Her eyes moved with sharp precision, calculating distance, timing, and numbers. 4 attackers. Maybe 5. Rifles. Footsteps getting closer. And wounded Marines everywhere. Emily slowly set down the medical chart she was holding. Her calm expression didn't change. Because the truth was something none of them could have imagined. Emily Carter wasn't just a nurse. She was a Navy SEAL. Years earlier, she had been part of one of the most elite special operations units in the world. She had completed training that most soldiers would never survive. She had served in combat zones few people even knew existed. But after a devastating mission that left several teammates dead, Emily chose a different path. She wanted to save lives instead of taking them. She retrained as a military nurse and quietly requested assignment to the hospital. She never told anyone about her past. Until that morning forced her hand. Another gunshot echoed down the hallway. A Marine near the nurse's station whispered in fear that the attackers were coming straight toward the recovery ward. Emily took one slow breath. Her mind switched instantly into combat mode. She moved quickly but calmly, locking the nearest ward door and guiding several nurses to move patients away from the hallway. Her instructions were quiet but firm, and something about her tone made people listen. One young nurse noticed the sudden change in Emily's posture. The softness in her movements had vanished. Now she moved like someone trained for war. Emily scanned the room. Improvised weapons. Medical equipment. Limited time. One of the wounded Marines stared at her in confusion as she tightened a strap around her wrist and crouched beside the door. He had seen that look before. Not on nurses. On soldiers preparing for battle. The attackers reached the hallway seconds later. The door handle rattled violently. Someone shouted from outside. Then the lock broke. The door burst open. The first gunman stepped inside expecting frightened hospital staff. Instead, he met Emily Carter. The fight lasted only seconds, but to the Marines watching from their beds it felt unreal. Emily moved with terrifying speed. She disarmed the first attacker before he could fire a second shot, redirecting the rifle and slamming him into the wall with a force that left him unconscious. The second man tried to raise his weapon, but she closed the distance instantly, using precise strikes that showed years of elite combat training. Within moments both attackers were down. The room fell silent except for the shocked breathing of injured Marines who had just witnessed something impossible. The rookie nurse stood in the center of the ward holding a captured rifle. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the Marine who had been calling her rookie whispered the words everyone was thinking. "Who are you?" Emily didn't answer. She was already moving again. Because the battle wasn't over. Footsteps echoed in the hallway. More attackers were coming. Emily quickly secured the entrance and checked the condition of the wounded Marines. Some of them insisted on helping despite their injuries. One Marine with a bandaged shoulder slowly sat up, determination burning in his eyes. They may have been wounded. But they were still Marines. Emily handed him a rifle and gave quiet instructions with the confidence of someone who had commanded teams in combat before. The Marines listened carefully, realizing that the quiet nurse they had underestimated was far more than she seemed. Together they prepared for the next wave. The attackers stormed the hallway minutes later, expecting terrified hospital staff. Instead, they walked into a defensive position organized by a Navy SEAL and a group of wounded but determined Marines. The fight that followed was chaotic and intense. Gunfire echoed through the halls as Emily coordinated the defense with calm precision. She moved between cover points, assisting the Marines, securing wounded staff, and ensuring the attackers could not reach the most vulnerable patients. Every movement she made was controlled and calculated. To the Marines watching her fight, it became painfully clear that Emily had once lived a life very different from the quiet nurse they thought they knew. At one point, a young nurse froze in terror as gunfire erupted nearby. Emily pulled her safely behind cover without hesitation, her voice steady and reassuring even as bullets struck the walls nearby. Saving lives had always been her mission. Now she was doing it in a different way. Minutes later, military police and base security finally arrived, storming the hospital and securing the building. The remaining attackers were quickly captured. The danger was over. But the silence that followed was heavy with disbelief. The Marines in the recovery ward stared at Emily as she carefully set down the rifle and returned to checking patients like nothing extraordinary had happened. The Marine who had lost his leg looked at her with a mixture of respect and amazement. All this time, he had thought she was just a nurse. Now he understood something far deeper. She had been protecting them long before the attack began. Word spread quickly through the hospital about what had happened. Staff members whispered about the quiet nurse who had single-handedly stopped armed attackers and organized a defense with injured Marines. Some people called her a hero. Emily didn't like that word. Later that day, as the hospital slowly returned to calm, she sat beside one of the wounded Marines and helped adjust his bandages with the same quiet kindness she had shown since her first day. To her, this was the real mission. Helping people heal. The Marine who had once joked about her being a rookie finally shook his head and smiled weakly. Turns out the toughest warrior in the room had been the one carrying a medical bag. If this story moved you even a little, please take a moment to like the video, share it with someone who believes in courage, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this. And before the story ends, I have one special request. Comment the word respect if you believe heroes don't always wear armor, sometimes they wear scrubs and carry compassion instead of weapons. Because the truth is, the Marines never forgot the morning they discovered who Emily Carter really was. Not just a Navy SEAL. Not just a nurse. But proof that strength and kindness can live in the same heart. And sometimes the person quietly saving lives beside you may also be the one ready to protect them when the world suddenly turns dangerous.